Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Tracy Alexander. And coming up in today's newscast, pushing back against new pandemic restrictions, Israelis are calling for speedier government assistance as more businesses are forced to shut down again. Israel's national carrier could be flying back into the state's hands as its shares are put on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange should you be looking to buy. And the new web series spotlighting the weird and wonderful of Tel Aviv. We meet the makers here in studio. It's not a good look after being one of the best countries in the world to cope with the pandemic at the start. Now Israel looks to be among the worst and could soon be forced to relive the very fresh memories of life under lockdown. Here's more. Israel is on the verge of a national lockdown once again. That's the latest warning from the Israeli Prime Minister. COVID-19 infections in Israel still rising dramatically, the number of infections now blasting past 31,000.
המגפה מתפשטת, זה ברור כשמש. היא עולה בעלייה תלולה מדי יום, היא סוחבת איתה, בניגוד למה שנאמר לנו, שובל של חולים קשים.
With upwards of 1,000 new cases still reported daily, now nearly 13,000 are actively infected. Almost 90 are in serious condition and the death toll stands at 338. Careening towards secondary lockdowns, Israel's government doing everything in its power to prevent the spread of the deadly disease and overwhelming the country's healthcare system.
היום יש כ-90 חולים קשים וזה מכפיל את עצמו כל 4 ימים. אם לא נפעל עכשיו, אנחנו נקבל מאות ואולי למעלה מ1,000 חולים קשים בשבועות הקרובים, דבר שישתק את המערכות שלנו.
The newest restrictions now in place include the closure of gyms, public schools, culture shows, event halls, bars and clubs. Restaurants and dining halls will also be limited to 20 people, 30 if tables are outside and widely spaced. Buses will be limited to 20 people each, as will gatherings with people required to keep 2 metres distance and wear masks. Under the new restrictions, government ministries and companies will have to send 30% of their staff to work from home. And summer camps, summer schools and youth activities will be limited to kids between kindergarten and the 4th grade, with restrictions on older children still under advisement. Moving forward, we're likely to see restrictions slapped into place at pace. Lawmakers passing a controversial law in the early hours of this morning, allowing the government to enforce new regulations immediately and only later seek Knesset approval. But public anger is rising due to the pace at which assistance is reaching those impacted by the closures. The outrage also showing in the polls, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's approval rating taking a hit.
I think the government didn't do anything for the last 3 months. We have a Prime Minister who is deep in he have like a trial going on, and seems like this is all the time he's putting into.
The first closure was a disaster for us. A lot of people got hurt, and we're still getting relieved from the first shutdown. So closing down another time is a very big problem for us. We have families to feed. We have workers to support, and they all rely on this, and I'm sure other gyms are as well.
Thankfully, though, the new restrictions demand the Finance Ministry introduce a new compensation package within 48 hours. Trying to douse the flames, Health Minister Yuli Edelstein saying that while he understands the public's concerns, it's short-term pain for long-term gain, that these restrictions will help the economy in the long run and hopefully prevent a lockdown becoming necessary within the coming weeks. Now, to remind you, as Israel opened its schools after the first COVID-19 wave, many were quickly shut down as the virus began to spread across the education system. And as part of control efforts, well, nationwide testing was boosted. Now, that's continued to increase ever since, and drive-through testing sites have been set up across the country, with the Health Ministry carrying out more than 23,000 tests yesterday alone. But what is the process to get tested here in Israel? As numbers rise, many are wondering how to go about checking if they're safe. Well, our very own Nittany Manson went through the process and she is here to tell us more. Nittany, first of all, we're so glad to have you back in the office.
So good to be back, Tracy.
So lucky you can work from home. That's what I'm saying about technology these days. But tell us, what did you have to go through in order to find out how to get a test in the first place?
So taking it back a second, I was at a workshop, actually a weekend workshop. Everything was fine. I felt fine afterwards. I came home, continued working. Everything was normal. And then I got a phone call, that phone call that nobody wants to get, saying somebody at your workshop actually got tested for corona and came up positive. So I immediately called my doctor. The office was closed when I called. It was actually, it was a difficult process to go through.
Right, I have heard.
But it was a Thursday evening, so come Friday morning, I called my doctor's office. My doctor said, okay, I'm gonna send you to get a test, and then just kind of hung up on me.
Okay.
It was like...
we're left with no answers, but then you took yourself into quarantine, and from there, on your own, you started to make some more phone calls.
Yes, so I put myself into quarantine. I called MADA, I called the health ministry, I called everybody that I could. It was a Friday, which meant everything was closing, so it was really difficult to get a hold of anyone. I didn't actually until Sunday morning. But on Friday afternoon, I got a text message from MADA saying, okay, so your doctor has recommended you for a test. Where would you like to do it? It gave me a drop-down list.
Okay.
You pick your location, your time, everything. Once I got that text, everything was easy.
Right,
I just picked everything. I got the test on that Sunday morning.
Fantastic, and we're seeing some pictures now of you. We were seeing them just before of getting the test. What was the experience like? It looked a bit icky.
It was very nerve-wracking. It's the corona test. Everybody's like, it's crazy, but it was very simple. It was much easier than I thought it was going to be. Once I got reached out to by MADA, everything went very smoothly.
Okay.
I set up my test on the Friday afternoon. I got the test on Sunday morning. And I had my results by the next day. It was less than 24 hours.
That is very good. So if you were to give advice to somebody who's in Israel that might not know the process, just give us the 1, 2, 3 of what they should do. 1, 2, 3.
1, call your doctor. 2, make sure you get that text from MADA, and if you don't, call your doctor again.
Okay.
Set up your time and
once you get in touch with MADA, then the rest is smooth sailing.
Smooth sailing, and you get your answer pretty quickly, actually.
We are so glad to have you back and that you're healthy, and thank you for that insight. I'm sure it's going to help out many people.
I hope.
Well, a warning before we show this next video that it is violent in nature and might be disturbing for some viewers. An internal probe is underway after what Israeli police and the court judge are calling an unusual incident, which began with a request by police for 3 young men in the city of Holon to put on their coronavirus face masks. This video, widely shared on social media, shows 2 police officers using significant force on a 24-year-old man, tasering him and beating him while on the ground. Have a look.
תראו, הוא לא מתנגד, תראו מה הוא עושה לי. בוא'נה, למה אתה מרים ידיים אבל? למה אתה מרים ידיים? שקט. די, בוא'נה. די, תראו מה הם עושים לו, תסתכלו. תראו. די, שוטה, בוא'נה. הרגת אותו מכות, תראה, כולו דם.
Now, it's not easy to watch. The young man, who does not have a criminal record, was taken to hospital where he was arrested. Police say the man refused to identify himself to officers, and while he did not flee the officers, he did not cooperate with them and talked on his phone while he was being questioned. The police testimony shows that claims that the young man wounded an officer and a volunteer policeman. A Tel Aviv magistrates court releasing the suspect on bail Monday. Israel's police calling this a grave incident that will be investigated. Meantime, police in Jerusalem are also coming under fire after stopping a young ultra-Orthodox girl for failing to wear her face mask properly. The 13-year-old can be seen beginning to cry as the police question her. Public Security Minister Amir Ohana, who is in charge of police, is calling on officers to show discretion and urging the public to understand that officers are just doing the duty that was thrust upon them. A difficult balance. Now, Iran has been hit in another explosion as reports emerge that Israel was behind one of at least 4 in the past month. A Middle Eastern intelligence official telling the New York Times that the unidentified blast at the Natanz nuclear complex was caused by a powerful bomb sparked by Israel, adding that Jerusalem wasn't linked to several other mysterious fires in Iran over the past week. Aaron Porras has more.
The mysterious string of explosions in Iran continuing this week, at least 2 people killed and another 3 injured outside of Tehran overnight, when a large fireball rose up from the Sepahan Borish factory. Authorities saying the blast was caused due to negligence in filling oxygen tanks. This making for the 5th explosion reported around Tehran in the past month. The Natanz nuclear center, the Kojir missile manufacturing plant, the Zargan power plant, and the Karun petrochemical center. All hit by sometimes mysterious incidents, some allegedly caused by cyber attacks targeting these Iranian military and research facilities, for which Israel is being blamed. Meanwhile, Israel reportedly foiling Iranian attempts at retaliation. The Mossad spy agency is said to be working with foreign governments to prevent planned and attempted Iranian attacks. The targets? Iranian diplomatic missions around the world. And this is far from Iran's first try. Previous reports showing how Iran's Lebanon-based proxy Hezbollah attempted to carry out a number of attacks against Israeli missions in 2012, including in India, the UK, Thailand, and Georgia.
Moving on, Israel's national carrier could be flying back into the state's hands, and those who are watching the stock market might be able to get their hands on some of the spoils should El Al find its financial feet again. Nittany Manson reports.
The plane has landed. After the fate of El Al hung in the air since COVID-19 grounded passenger flights, Israel's national carrier has been struggling to stay afloat. But the state could now be the wind beneath its wings, the struggling airline accepting an Israeli government bailout that would likely give the state some 61% of the firm. El Al given a $250 million government-backed loan, with guarantees for some 75% of it should the firm default. Also included is a stock offering in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange to raise some $150 million in a bid to prop up equity in a company now $2 billion in debt. But it doesn't spell good news for the workers. The deal demands efficiency steps, which could lead to some 2,000 employees being fired. The state, though, must buy any unsold shares, which could see the airline once again the majority stakeholder. This some 16 years after El Al privatized, the aviation industry needing some emergency life support. The CEO of Israel's main airport, Ben Gurion, warning that the country is only days away from reaching the point of no return.
And joining us with more is economic professor Omer Moav from the IDC. Professor Moav, great to have you with us. Now, El Al continues to find itself in financial trouble. Of course, COVID-19 has been the nail in the coffin. But as a firm, money troubles isn't new. Why is that?
Yeah, no, El Al is a firm that was almost bankrupt before the COVID crisis. So in a sense, the crisis might be the thing that could rescue the company. The issue is, should the government rescue El Al or purchase El Al and nationalize it again? And I think there are 2 separate elements here. One is realizing that we're going into a long crisis, potentially long, and the state of Israel would need to spend a lot of money. Money it doesn't have, money it needs to borrow in order to just help people survive during the year or 2 years that the recession would continue. And wasting money on buying El Al seems like a bad investment.
So, Professor Moav, you say it's wasting money. Why is that, though? Why is El Al failing to be able to become perhaps a valuable company?
Well, I think there's something in maybe the deep DNA of El Al. It used to be a bad government-owned company. And when it was privatized, nothing much has changed. So like many of our government companies, very strong labor unions, and then really a bad, I don't know why exactly, but it seems that El Al never managed to compete properly, never managed to be efficient. The management was controlled by the strong labor unions, the typical problems of government companies. They didn't get rid of it, and now the government would just buy El Al, and we are back to where we started.
So as stocks then get set to return to the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, are these smart stocks to buy?
Well, I mean, someone who bought the stock the day before the rise did a good choice. Now the fact that they go up doesn't really reflect anything about the value of El Al, just that it's a bit higher than it was before based on what the average investor thinks. It doesn't mean that this is that El Al is on the way to recover and be a successful company.
All right, Professor Moav, thank you so much for that insight.
Thank you.
Now, the issue of legalising cannabis continues to go around and around in circles in Israel, dizzying many. The bill has been shelved as low priority since the emergence of COVID-19, but for those who believe they would benefit greatly from its use, well, the delay is painful. Today on ILTV Insider with Aaron Porras, he discusses the dissonance seen in the Israeli narrative. Have a look.
The Health Ministry website still says that it's a dangerous drug, literally, I'm quoting, and that it has nearly no medical use, and yet in the same sentence it says, but there is some evidence to support it. And then, of course, there's the Medical Cannabis Agency. You know, I want to play a clip actually really quick that sort of exemplifies this dissonance. Take a look.
אבל במקרה יש לי שמן, הבידק ל-30%, שכתוב עליו, זה סם מסוכן, כתוב עליו, זה לא כתוב עליו. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. הופה! זה גם פג תוקף, חברים.
Where is the line drawn exactly?
Where is the line? The line, from my point of view, is professional. This guy wanted me to allow to give cannabis to a child, to a small girl, without medical supervision. Cannabis oil, without medical supervision.
This guy he's probably very. I had a discussion with him later. He was very frustrated by the limitations and by the regulation of medical cannabis, and he wanted to make a point that it's not dangerous. It is a drug, and it has its dangers. Is the headline "dangerous drug" not a good name? Maybe it's not a good name.
And for the full show, you can catch ILTV Insider by subscribing to our Facebook and YouTube channels. Now, speaking of social media, now anyone who lives in Israel's metropolitan hub of Tel Aviv will tell you that it might not be the easiest place to live, but it is the best city to live in the world. So much so that despite its challenges, thousands of tourists come from abroad to visit, fascinated by its experiences, tastes and colours, and some decide to stay for good. For all the wonderfulness that happens in Tel Aviv, making a life here means taking many of the bizarre happenings in your stride. In a new online series, two international comedians who now call Tel Aviv home, decided to unveil some of the funny sides of the city that locals know tortuously well. Take a look.
Is it summer? Is it winter? What season is it, Tel Aviv? Excuse me, miss. Slicha, miss. Miss.
Ken.
Ken? What do you mean, Ken? You just cut the line.
לא, לא נכון.
No, you have to go to the back
לא,
of the line.
מה פתאום? סליחה, קצת כבוד. מה את עושה עכשיו? אני באתי לפה טוב. אני פה, אני שם. זה בסדר? מה את חולה באמת?
Excuse me, sir.
מה?
סליחה,
זה לא בסדר.
You just cut.
סמדר.
סמדר.
זה המקום שלי, המקום
And Lee, Ella and Marley Leon join me in studio to talk more about Welcome to Tel Aviv. Ladies, welcome. You're both looking a whole lot healthier today than you are in that clip. Marley, tell me a little bit about that video, because for people that haven't been to Tel Aviv, they might not understand the comedy.
Right. Well, it's just a little bit of like how it feels when you come here from North America. It's a very different culture. So it's really in your face. It's really loud, and to us, it was just highlighting something that was, you know, you're here people cut you, and then you can...
We all know it all too well. That we say about in Israel, someone will cut you in line, you know, to get on the bus, but then there'll be the next person to help you in the street as well. It's something that you have to try and get your head around. But this is one of many videos that you've made. Tell us a little bit about what prompted you to make this series.
Well, Welcome to Tel Aviv was just an idea that we had. We were just like, the stuff that happens here is so ridiculous. Somebody needs to capture this. Right. And we were both starting out a little bit in the acting world in Tel Aviv. And, you know, it's very empowering to be able to also tell the story of Welcome to Tel Aviv, of what it's like to be here from an Olim, and more than that, an Olot Chadashot perspective. But also it kind of gave us liberation because we didn't really have a, I mean, I don't know about you, I didn't really have a show reel from stuff I did here. And it made me kind of at my beck and call of other people. And I was like, no, you know what? This is going to give us a chance to tell the story of how we're living life and rule the narrative.
And it also speaks to the fact that Tel Aviv really embraced you. You both moved here from North America. Tell us briefly about what brought you here and then what made you stay.
Yeah, well, I kind of have never been a person that has roots. You know, I move around a lot, and Tel Aviv is like the one place that I finally felt at home, and that there's such a community here, and we want to celebrate that, and it just feels like you could make great connections here all the time.
And how does it feel for you coming here?
I mean, I was 19 and I didn't know what I was doing, and I just knew I needed out from where I was. And sometimes when you just go with your gut, it brings you to the right place, and almost 10 years later, I'm sitting with you here, so that's
exactly.
fun.
You don't have to move. Many people think people move to Israel because of Zionistic reasons, or maybe they have family here, or perhaps it's for a job, but some people move because just where they were born didn't quite suit them, and then they come to a city and they really find their feet. And how does this series, I suppose, tell outside audiences something that really means something to you?
I think the most important thing is a lot of times we meet people here and we befriend people as Olim Chadashim that we normally wouldn't be friends with outside of this country, but there's one thing that kind of bridges the gap between all of us, and I think that we're all kind of running away from something and we're running towards a new reality. And Welcome to Tel Aviv is just when you bring so many different types of people and you put them in this crazy world where you're shoving and pushing and then having dinner with the people that cut you in line. That life is fun and it's versatile and it's dynamic, and one day you're up and one day you're down, and it's all good.
And this is the beginning of your journey. What kind of responses have you had so far?
We've gotten great responses because it's really relatable, it's relevant. I think even though you think it's only happening to you and the situation's unique, you talk to your friend and the same situation has happened to them.
And obviously Welcome to Tel Aviv is all about the people, and I know that you've set up your own production company called the 11th House, and that even our viewers could get involved. Tell us about that.
So 11th House Productions is, Welcome to Tel Aviv is a series that is under that, but really 11th House Productions is a collection of creatives that we have been so blessed to meet along the way. We're working with a new cinematographer named Gabriel Volkovich and his brother Abi. Actually, the person who helped start it with us was my fiance Gabrielle Haynes, and now we have Danielle Fadelson writing with us. And what it is about giving a voice to the creative. We are so humbled to be able to create a platform where people can really express. And so we say, listen, if you have a script idea or a quintessential Tel Aviv moment that you want us to showcase, send it to us on Facebook. And if we like it, we just might bring you on as a writer for that episode.
It's not only the startup nation when it comes to innovation, it's also very creative in that world. And you guys are really bringing that innovative brushstroke to here, to what you're creating. And of course, there's a whole lot more to come. So if you want to check out Welcome to Tel Aviv and see what's coming up, take a look at what's going to come up next.
She just broke up with me. Right at the start of being dude.
Maybe Corona is a time for us to do the things that we always wanted to do. Let's learn Hebrew.
Fine. Well, we're going to have to get you back on to hear how your Hebrew lesson is going. We'll do the next interview in Hebrew. Marley and Lee, thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you so much.
And after seeing those beautiful sunny faces, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Sun, sun, and more sun. But as it sets tonight, this evening we'll see a low of 74 degrees in Tel Aviv. That's 23 degrees Celsius. And then tomorrow we're headed for a high of a sweaty 85 degrees. That's 29 degrees Celsius. And now before we go, let's take a look at what's going viral in Israel.
אני הולכת לשירותים, עד שאני חוזרת, את לא נוגעת בחטיף. לא לגעת. טוב? לא לגעת.
So this looks like it is the dog version of the challenge that parents are doing when they're putting a sweet in front of their child. It's called the candy challenge, I'm being told, where a child is made to look at their treat while the parent leaves the room, and you test your child to see if they're going to test their self-control. So let's see what this dog is going to do. So far, so good. This little pup is resisting all temptation. Don't do it, doggy. Oh, well, there you go. I don't blame him. All right, well, that is it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.46 shekels to the American dollar. For more news from ILTV, please like ILTV on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and Roku TV pages. I'm Tracy Alexander, and thank you so much for watching.